Imagine this. A billionaire seated at his long dining table, about to taste the most expensive dish money can buy. Suddenly, a maid's little daughter runs in, shouting, "Don't eat that." The room falls silent. Why would a poor child dare to stop the most powerful man in the city? What secret does this girl know that could change everything? Stay with us till the end, you won't believe the shocking truth behind her words. And before we begin, don't forget to comment your thoughts and subscribe to my channel for more emotional and life-changing stories like this one. The mansion stood like a monument of wealth in the middle of the city, glowing under the warm hue of golden chandeliers. Guests arrived in sleek black cars, their laughter echoing in the marble hallway as servants rushed to collect coats and guide them toward the grand dining room. Every surface sparkled, crystal glasses reflected candlelight, silverware shone like jewels, and the scent of imported flowers drifted through the air. To everyone in attendance, this was another display of Mr. Raymond's unmatched fortune. Raymond himself, tall and impeccably dressed in a tailored black suit, presided at the head of the massive table. His sharp eyes scanned the guests, as though every nod of approval and every whisper of admiration was a currency he valued more than the billions in his bank account. He was a man used to control, used to power, and tonight was no exception. The meal, imported from abroad at outrageous costs, was meant to leave his guests in awe. But in the farthest corner of the glittering room stood Maria, the maid who had worked for Raymond for nearly a decade. Dressed in a simple uniform, she blended into the shadows, her hands folded neatly before her. No one spoke to her unless they needed something, water, a towel, or to clean a spill. To the wealthy elite, she was invisible. Yet her daughter Lily, a small girl of 8 with curious brown eyes, refused to disappear in the same way. Lily had joined her mother this evening because there was no one to watch her at home. She sat quietly on a wooden stool near the kitchen in trance, her legs dangling, her gaze wandering around the dazzling room. Unlike the other children she sometimes saw on television or in magazines, Lily wasn't impressed by gold forks or sparkling gowns. She saw people laughing loudly but insincerely, their eyes darting with envy more than joy. Still, she stayed silent, hugging her mother's shawl whenever Maria passed by with a tray. Maria had warned her not to disturb anyone, not to speak unless spoken to. And Lily listened, but there was something different about tonight, something unusual she couldn't explain. As the servants carried out the first course, Lily's nose twitched. The aroma was rich, strong, almost overpowering. She tilted her head curiously, her little mind processing scents the way her grandmother had taught her years ago. Grandma often spoke about plants, herbs, and natural remedies, warning which ones could heal and which could harm. Lily remembered every detail, and though no one else noticed, she began to feel uneasy. The clinking of glasses and murmurs of conversation filled the hall as the second course was unveiled. The head chef, wearing his spotless white uniform, entered with pride. He carried a silver tray draped in velvet cloth, and when he pulled it back, a wave of aroma swept through the room. The centerpiece dish glistened under the lights, a roasted meat glazed with golden herbs, garnished with rare spices said to be flown in from distant lands. Guests gasped in admiration, some leaned closer, whispering about the price. One man joked that the meal probably cost more than a month's rent in the city's wealthiest neighborhood. Raymond smirked. That was exactly the reaction he wanted. Maria, balancing a tray of glasses, caught a glimpse of the extravagant dish. Her eyes widened, not with admiration, but with worry. She had lived her life on pennies, saving every rupee, every dime, to make sure Lily ate something decent at night. Seeing food so expensive it could feed dozens of families for weeks always left a quiet ache in her heart. But she lowered her gaze. This was not her world. She had no right to question it. Lily, however, did not look away. From her little stool, her big brown eyes fixed on the platter. The scent was stronger now, filling her tiny lungs with something that didn't feel right. She wrinkled her nose, tilting her head the way children do when they're curious. Her grandmother's voice echoed in her memory. Some herbs heal, child, but others can burn the body from the inside. Never forget their faces, never forget their smell. Lily leaned forward, squinting. At first, she thought maybe she was wrong. The herb looked decorative, pretty even, the kind adults used to make food seem fancier. But then she remembered, it wasn't safe. Her little heart began to race. She glanced toward her mother, wanting to say something, but Maria was busy filling glasses, rushing from one guest to another. No one else seemed to notice. Guests laughed, raising toasts, waiting eagerly for Raymond to take the first bite. The billionaire, proud and oblivious, lifted his fork. The polished silver gleamed as he sliced into the meat. Cameras flashed from guests who wanted to capture the moment, eager to post about their evening at the city's grandest table. But Lily's hands gripped her seat tightly. She could not stay quiet any longer. The dangerous herb on the plate was not simply decoration, it could poison him. Her lips parted, her small voice shaking. She had seconds before the bite reached his mouth. The silver fork hovered inches away from Raymond's mouth. Every eye at the long table watched with admiration, waiting for their host to savor the delicacy no one else could afford. The air seemed to thrum with anticipation, the guests holding their breaths as though they too would taste it through him. Then, breaking through the silence like a thunderclap, came a small, trembling voice. "Don't eat that." The words echoed across the vast hall. The chatter stopped instantly. Forks clattered onto plates. Dozens of heads turned in unison, eyes narrowing toward the source. At the entrance to the kitchen, little Lily stood frozen, her hands balled into fists, her chest rising and falling quickly. She had not meant to scream, but fear had forced it out of her. Gasps rose from the guests. Some chuckled nervously, believing it to be childish mischief. A man in a tuxedo whispered, "The maid's daughter, how dare she?" Another scoffed, ruining the evening for attention. Raymond's face hardened, the lines around his mouth tightening. He lowered his fork slowly, his pride stung by the interruption. In his world, respect was absolute, and to be shouted at, by a child no less, was unforgivable. Maria rushed forward in panic, her tray rattling as she set it down too quickly. She nearly stumbled as she reached her daughter, grabbing Lily's arm. "What are you doing?" she whispered harshly, her voice trembling with fear. "You mustn't speak like this. Apologize, now." But Lily's wide eyes were locked on Raymond. Her lips trembled as she spoke again, louder this time. "It's poison, please, don't eat it." The hall erupted into whispers. Laughter from some corners, shock from others. "Poison," one woman repeated mockingly. "Ridiculous," another said. "What does a child know about such things?" Raymond's chair scraped against the polished floor as he stood, towering over the table. His glare fell on Maria, his voice like ice. "Control your child," he commanded. His pride demanded punishment, an example to silence the insult. Tears filled Maria's eyes as she sank to her knees, begging forgiveness. "Sir, she doesn't know what she's saying. She's just a child. Please don't be angry." But Lily pulled away from her mother's grasp. Her small frame shook, but her voice carried a weight far beyond her years. "I swear, it's poison. That herb, it can kill. Please, believe me." For the first time, the billionaire hesitated. The guests' whispers grew louder, pressing against his ears. The room felt heavier. Was this truly foolishness, or a child's desperate truth? The hall was thick with unease. Raymond, still standing, tapped the edge of his fork against the plate, the metallic sound echoing like a warning bell. His sharp eyes swept over the guests, all of whom were whispering furiously, some mocking the little girl, others shifting nervously in their seats. At last, Raymond raised a hand, silencing the room. His pride burned at being interrupted, yet something in Lily's trembling voice lingered. He was not a man easily frightened, but he was a man who valued control, and he did not like uncertainty. His lips curved into a cold smile. "Very well," he said, his tone carrying both arrogance and curiosity. "If the food is safe, then my chef will have no problem tasting it first." The chef, who had been standing proudly moments ago, stiffened. All eyes turned to him. His polished confidence seemed to crack as a bead of sweat rolled down his temple. He forced a laugh, waving his hands nervously. "Sir, surely, there is no need. This meal was prepared under the finest standards. You insult me by doubting it." Raymond's voice deepened, carrying an edge that silenced the protest. "Taste it." The command hung in the air like a blade. The chef's hands trembled as he picked up the fork. He pierced a piece of the golden meat, his eyes darting between the billionaire and the little girl who had called him out. His throat bobbed as he brought it closer to his lips. But he stopped. His hand shook violently now, his skin pale. Gasps filled the room. A woman at the far end whispered, "Why doesn't he eat it?" Another muttered, "Is it possible?" The chef dropped the fork with a clatter, his voice breaking. "Forgive me, sir," he cried, falling to his knees. "I had no choice. I was offered money. They forced me. Your rival promised wealth if I succeeded. That herb, it's deadly if cooked in heat. I didn't think the girl would notice." The hall erupted into chaos. Guests jumped from their seats, horrified. Some looked at Lily in disbelief, others in awe. Maria stood frozen, her heart racing, while Lily clutched her mother's hand tightly, eyes wide but steady. Raymond's face drained of color. His gaze shifted from the trembling chef to the little girl. In that instant, the walls of arrogance around him cracked. She had been right. The maid's daughter had saved him from a silent death disguised as a delicacy. The room fell silent again, waiting for his next move. The hall remained eerily quiet, the weight of the chef's confession pressing down like a heavy curtain. Guests who had once laughed at Lily now stared at her as though she were something extraordinary, a child who had seen what none of them could. Some looked ashamed for mocking her, while others whispered nervously about the danger they had narrowly avoided. Raymond's tall frame seemed smaller now, his arrogance stripped away by the raw truth. He turned slowly, his gaze landing on Lily. For the first time in years, the billionaire's eyes softened. No wealth, no power, no grandeur mattered in that moment. His life had been spared by a maid's daughter, someone society deemed insignificant. Maria, trembling with fear and embarrassment, bowed her head low. "Please, sir, forgive us." She spoke out of turn. She only wanted to help. Her voice cracked with desperation. She expected dismissal, maybe even punishment. All her years of loyalty flashed before her eyes, and she braced herself for the worst. But Raymond didn't look at Maria. He walked toward Lily, each step echoing in the vast silence. Kneeling down to meet her at eye level, he asked softly, "How did you know?" Lily bit her lip, her voice small but steady. "Grandma taught me about herbs. That one, it makes people very sick when it's cooked. I didn't want you to get hurt." Her honesty pierced through the room like sunlight breaking clouds. Tears welled in Maria's eyes, though she dared not speak. Raymond drew in a shaky breath. His pride wanted to resist, to dismiss the girl's words, but his heart knew better. She had saved him. In a hall full of wealth, intellect, and influence, it was the smallest voice that carried the greatest truth. Standing tall again, Raymond turned to his guests. "Tonight, I was saved not by my money, not by my power, but by the courage of a child." His voice, usually commanding, carried humility. Let us remember that wisdom does not always wear fine clothes, and truth does not always come from the mouths of the mighty. The guests bowed their heads, some ashamed, others deeply moved. The maid's daughter, once invisible in the room, now shone brighter than the golden chandeliers above them. Raymond placed a hand gently on Lily's shoulder. "Thank you," he whispered. 2 words, spoken with more sincerity than he had ever shown anyone before. For the first time in her young life, Lily smiled, not out of pride, but relief that she had been heard. The party ended abruptly, but a new beginning quietly unfolded. Raymond dismissed the guests, his heart still pounding from the near-death experience. He walked over to Maria and Lily, kneeling so he could look the little girl in the eye. "You saved my life," he whispered. Lily, shy but firm, replied, "Grandma taught me about plants. I just didn't want you to get hurt." Tears welled up in Maria's eyes. For years she had been invisible in the mansion, her hard work unnoticed, her child treated as a shadow. But tonight, everything changed. Raymond turned to Maria and said, "I don't just owe you my gratitude, I owe you my respect." He promised Lily a scholarship to the finest school, ensuring her future would never be chained by poverty. Maria, stunned, could only clasp her daughter's hand tightly. From that night onward, Raymond's home felt different, not just grand, but human. The lesson lingered. Sometimes, truth and courage come from the smallest voices. And in that moment, the billionaire realized his wealth meant nothing compared to the priceless gift of being saved by a maid's daughter.